This will be a shorter video, but I want to talk a little bit about using transitions. When you move from one idea to another in your writing, you want to help your readers out and understand why we're moving from one idea to another and help them adjust to the change in topic or change in ideas. They don't know what's coming in the next sentence, what's coming in the next paragraph, what's coming in the next section, and you using transitions can help them adjust and understand where an essay is going. Usually when students write about or they talk about flow, they're talking about how organized a paper is and how successfully ideas transition from one to another in a paper. To have a good flow of ideas, you need to use transitions between ideas, whether it's ideas between sentences, ideas between paragraphs, or ideas between sections of your essay. You need to use transition words. So I'm going to walk you through very quickly how to use transitions and where you can find good ideas for transition signals. On the Purdue OWL, they have a short page about transitions and transitional devices. And what I wanted to call your attention to are these different relationships. And that's really what transitions are doing, is help us understand the relationships between what you said in one sentence or one paragraph or one section of your documented argument or whatever it is that you're working on. What's the relationship between that idea and the idea that's coming up? So if you're adding an idea, if you're comparing ideas, if you're proving something like cause and effect, to show exception, like something is going to be different from other things, to show time, to repeat, to emphasize, any relationship that you can kind of think of. There's a little bit of text here and transition signals that you can think of to demonstrate how ideas are related to each other. Let's work with a few of these in our sample documented argument. So here we are in the sample documented argument, and I want to show you a few examples of transitions that we have in this larger paragraph. So I've been working on this paragraph a bit. You saw this paragraph earlier when we were talking about quotes and paraphrases, and I added a bit more to it. I found some other sources that talked about addiction in rural communities and how folks that are leaders or prominent community members, if they have a particular mindset towards addiction, it can be pretty unhelpful to getting folks to address their addiction issues. So we go from one source, and there's a few transition signals to kind of draw your attention to here. In other words, is a really useful one if we want to show that we are clarifying or we're kind of calling something out or emphasizing something in a previous sentence. So I'm doing that with this paraphrase here. I have a paraphrase right here. And then after that, I got, in other words, I'm kind of highlighting what I thought was really important. People addicted to drugs living in rural communities start their addiction earlier and possess higher rates of overdose. I really wanted to mention these two items, so I'm using in other words to call attention to that. We also talked about, for example, that's explaining what's coming up is going to be an example of this thing. So that's how transitions work. You acknowledge what came before and you explain how it's related to what's coming up. And sometimes you can do that with just these simple transition words, what we saw on the Purdue OWL. Sometimes you need more. Sometimes you need an entire sentence to explain how ideas are connected. So we have a couple sentences of my commentary about this source here, and then we're going into something different with this second source here. Researchers, and this is an entire sentence that just transitions. That's what it does. It transitions to this other source that we're going to have. Researchers have also noted, so we're talking about addition here because we got that word there, resistance to talking about addiction in rural communities, and identified attitudes or stances towards addiction that won't reduce addiction rate and may increase the harm of addiction. For instance, child's. So we have, this is going to be an example of this, and we kind of saw that up here with this for example. But this entire sentence, it's all about just explaining how things are related to each other, how this idea is going to be connected to this idea down here. And then we also have a transition signal for how, like however here, that shows that there's going to be a little bit of contrast. So if people dealing with addiction fear that talking about their disease will result in being further blamed or ashamed, they will face an uphill battle in overcoming their addiction. However, transition signal, we're noting contrast here. If they feel included in a community and are able to freely talk about their struggle, they're more likely to trust resources to overcome their addiction. So we're seeing here different kinds of transition signals within this paragraph. Let's say we want to go on to another paragraph. We might want to say another important trend in the research. And then I would finish that sentence by kind of describing what that next trend would be. So that sentence would nod to what happened here, that this was a trend in the research, and I'm going to introduce another trend here. You can even extend that transition a little bit more. Let me pause this for a second, I'll show you. So sometimes we need an entire sentence, and even kind of a longish sentence like this, to explain what's going on from one idea to another, how the ideas are related to each other. So we have here, while researchers have described the specific problems of addiction in rural communities, that's what this previous paragraph was all about. So I'm nodding to the previous paragraph, and I'm forecasting what's going to come up in the upcoming paragraph. Another important trend to understand is the kinds of interventions and ways rural communities have gone about trying to address the problem. Here's what's going to happen in this upcoming paragraph. Sometimes we need to spend a bit more time explaining how we're going from one idea to another when we're talking about the sections of the larger project, like the documented argument. So this is the context section. That's what we've been working on. The next section is going to be about the solution. So I would want to include a few sentences here that takes us from this context and background, kind of sums up what we've learned there, and then pivots or moves and transitions. It changes the argument, the paper, into talking about here's how we're going to solve this issue. And that's going to take several sentences to do. So I hope you learned a little something about integrating quotes, integrating paraphrases, and using transitions. Even if this is something that you've heard before, I hope it refreshed your memory. As a little mini assignment, I'd like you to email your faculty member, and I want you to tell them one thing that you learned from watching these videos, and make it kind of specific, and one thing that you had already heard about and you felt kind of comfortable with, or the thing that I had talked about today that you felt more comfortable with than the others. Send that email to your faculty member. You'll get a little bit of homework credit for just watching the videos and paying attention. These 3 ideas that I talked about today, they can really improve your writing. And again, use this as an opportunity, use your discussion board activity today as an opportunity to kind of try these things out, to get some feedback about how you're integrating quotes, paraphrases, and using transitions. Again, it really benefits your writing to be able to learn how to do this stuff. So practice these skills, use them in your documented argument, and use today's discussion board activity to work on that documented argument. Keep making progress on it. Bye for now.